As I said, I'm Becca Warren. I use she, her pronouns, and I work at Vital Communities, where we work collaboratively to ensure the civic, environmental, and economic vitality of the Upper Valley. And I am part of the team that focuses on keeping local agriculture a part of our daily community life. And I have the pleasure of collaborating with many of you here in this event tonight on that goal. And I'd want to just mention that in terms of our panelists and myself at tonight's event, I recognize that this is only 5 voices represented out of many supporting our food system. And it's not our intention tonight to present this as the definitive look at the food system. We know it doesn't include many experiences, and we welcome during the discussion your experiences and your ideas. And it is our plan to continue holding farm and food conversations throughout the winter and bring more perspectives and topics. And later this evening, we'll be inviting you to weigh in on those. So the impacts of the pandemic hit our region in March, as you all know, and this timing itself, as well as the specific closures that happened under the Vermont and New Hampshire emergency orders, influenced how farms as a whole felt the shocks of the pandemic. And I want to just list some of the factors I've perceived to frame us up here to hear from our farmers. And so first of all, not specific to March, but significant to the past several years, New England cow dairies have been in a multi-year price crisis where the price they're receiving for milk is below the cost of their production. And so additional economic distress brought on by the pandemic has been a huge strain for a lot of cow dairies. Under the spring emergency orders, many reliable sales venues for local foods either shut or were dramatically changed. So institutional settings like schools and hospitals and colleges, they shut or went remote, and restaurants closed. And so farms and dairy co-ops that sell to those markets in large volume and large format were a little bit stuck because, for example, the size of a cheese block that you might sell to a college is very different than the size of a cheese block you might be able to sell at a farmer's market. And grocery stores were making many adjustments. There was a fear, and I think the fact that many people would stop buying local food items that they might consider non-essential to their diet. For example, maybe something like the gelato made by our panelist, Lisa Davis. The guidance on protective measures at farm stands and farmers markets and CSA meant more costs for producers and retailers. There was a big run on farm supplies of all kinds, from seeds to grain to soil amendments. But on the positive side, because the pandemic closures started in March, that time of year meant that many farms already had purchased supplies for the growing season. We saw that food panic had benefits for some types of farms, and some product sales went through the roof. For example, many meat producers saw a shocking rise in their sales. But then, due to changes in other parts of the country, slaughter and processing facilities in our area have become really overbooked. And absolutely not least in this list, it's estimated that food insecurity has almost doubled in our 2 Twin State region in 2020. So as I was listing this random array of circumstances that come to mind when I think about the food system in 2020, I felt like, oh, this is just a chaotic list. And then I thought, well, that is what it has been like this year. It's been a lot of chaos, a lot of moving pieces have characterized our food system. And this has led in a positive way to a lot of creativity, not positively to a lot of exhaustion, but also a lot of energy, I think, toward making the future we want to have in our farms and food system in the Upper Valley. So I'm so glad to have these 4 farmers join us to give a small picture of their experience and where they think the future lies. We'll start with about 5 minutes of sharing from each panelist, and then we'll move on to the discussion. I've asked each panelist to talk about their farm, the impact that pandemic has had on their farm business and their year, helpful things that have kept them going, including a connection with their community if there is some, and thinking about what we can do as the pandemic continues to keep farms resilient and to help keep our communities resilient. So we'll be hearing from everybody in order of how long their farm has been in business. So remember, you can use the chat to share your enthusiasm and appreciation, since we can't, be in person and make body language noises. So our first panelist will be Amy Richardson, who is from the Richardson family farm in Hartland, Vermont. And Richardson Farm was founded in 1907. So thank you, Amy.
Thanks, Becca. Can everyone hear me okay? Actually, it's 1905 even. So yeah, I'm excited to be here tonight. I got the night off from milking, so that's a perk to such events. Actually, I'm trading with my husband. I have to milk in the morning for him, so he has another obligation then. Let's see. The Richardson family farm is multi-generational on my husband's side. So I'm married into the Richardsons. I've been here for about 27 years now. We have 3 pretty much grown sons. My husband Scott is the oldest of 3 sons also. Ours is a partnership. So my husband and his dad and his youngest brother are the business partners. I'm not a business partner in the eyes of the IRS. I'm a farmer, so that's okay with me. And we have been diversified for many years. We are milking 58 registered jerseys today, and we have I guess a small, medium-sized sugaring operation. We have about 11,500 taps and have made around 7,000 gallons of syrup in a really good, outstanding year. And then our third business is split rail fence manufacture. So if any folks in the Upper Valley are familiar with Billings Farm, the wooden post and rail fence that they have there is made by us. And I just say Billings because they're pretty well known in the area. So we use native wood for that, northern white cedar and white ash for posts and rails respectively. And we work with a lot of small scale loggers and sugar makers to get the ash, and then we buy in the cedar from the northern part of the region. It doesn't really grow to a large scale in Hartland and in the Upper Valley where we're from. So let's see, we do graze our cows, not intensively, but we graze from May through sometime in October. We were into the end of October this year. There's one photo there on the slideshow of the cows going out to graze when there was a little bit of snow on the ground. And then all of our young stock we keep out on pasture as long as possible. And I think this has been perhaps one of the high points of 2020 in my daily life has been the fact that November was amazing weather-wise for heifers out on pasture. So we just brought in the last group of 23 just on Saturday. So I think it was the 5th of December, which I think is a record. And that's just really nice for our system because they're easy to keep when they're out on the land, and they do really well. They got nice and fluffy, but eventually ran out of grass. And yeah, when it turns to snow and ice, they need to come home. So my husband and his youngest brother are full-time on the farm. Their dad, Gordon Richardson, is probably 2/3 on the farm. And then I'm somewhere between, I don't know, 2/3 and full-time, I guess. I mean, I am there every day. I milk every day. I juggle a couple other jobs as well. I'm on the board for the Connecticut River Watershed Farmers Alliance. And we are Agrimark Cabot Co-op members. So I participate in a couple groups related to our dairy co-op. our Sustainable Farms Committee, and then Vermont Dairy Promotion Council and New England Dairy Promotion, and then a Vermont Dairy Advisory Council with the Secretary of Ag and a few other folks. And then lastly, but not leastly, I guess, I do a bit of wellness related work in our local supervisory union. So the collection of schools between Hartland, Windsor, West Windsor, and Wethersfield. I work on a wellness committee with representatives from all of the schools. So let's see, the pandemic, I can remember in March when we were sugaring, and my dad, who was 83 at the time, my folks live in Northfield, so about 50 miles north, and my parents have been retired for years and years. My dad really grew to love the farm as a second or maybe a third or fourth, I don't know, career and passion, and sugaring was really one of his most favorite activities. Driving 50 miles at 83 years old was, you know, back and forth was always a bit of a worry for me in more recent years. And then as things got a little more concerning with the pandemic, he decided to quit coming down every couple days or every day. And we all decided that was a good idea. And shortly after that, we put signs on our sugar house door and even down our driveway, not nearly as nice as the Edgewater signs that you'll see in the slideshow, but just some homemade signs that, you know, that really said, please stay away. Please don't come to our sugar house, which was very different, which was something we've never ever done, I don't think. We don't formally participate in the Vermont Maple Open House Weekend, but when you see steam rising out of a sugar house, you know, people tend to turn in. We've always welcomed visitors, hopefully to buy syrup, but if not, to, you know, to chat and to check out what was going on with boiling. So we really missed my dad this year. And ironically, as it turned out, my father passed away in late May. Not, well, a surprise, yes, but he did have some underlying health conditions. It was not related to COVID at all. He had some heart issues. So that was certainly one part of 2020 that stood out to me personally. And then shortly after Dad, my older sister's dog died, and then my old dog died. And so we've had a good amount of death in the family this year. We also lost a couple good cows along the way between then and now, although that happens any year, I guess. I think the biggest thing that we saw was probably related, I guess most directly in the way we run our business to our maple business. So we had to put a stop to people coming to the farm to buy syrup, which is something that we usually love to invite people to do. You know, you say sort of quietly, you get the best prices if you come to the farm and buy syrup. We couldn't allow that anymore as the weeks have gone by and things have, you know, been a little bit more comfortable at times and then more worrisome at times. We felt like it was just a rule we had to make for the entire year. But with that, we decided to set up I guess a porch side sales system. So people could email our website. We do have a maple-based website. They could email that with an order, or they could call any one of us in the family with their order and then come to the farm if they knew it already from previous business or with directions. And we would leave, we really just set a tiny table out on the front porch with a mason jar and a screw-on lid and a piece of paper inside that said, please put your maple syrup payment here. And it's worked great. We have a long driveway, so we're off the main road quite a ways. So we feel safe about, you know, leaving a few bucks in the jar for a few hours. And in general, people have really taken to that, which has made us feel so grateful. It's very strange to, see your neighbor stop 100 feet away and go onto the porch and get their syrup, and all we do is wave. And so that's been that part of our farm-based retail sales. No more farm tours right now. And then the other big thing is our mail order. And I did ask my brother-in-law today about the mail order business. And he said that it has been a bit stronger than in the past. And he did admit he hasn't even done any real intense marketing around it. He does have a Facebook page. So we're richardsonfarmmaple.com, and you can find that on Facebook too. We do a pretty good mail order business, and that's been chugging along well. So I think we're grateful to have that too. Some of our wholesale maple accounts dropped away when businesses closed and schools closed, at least for a period of time back in the spring and into the summer. He did say that at least some and possibly all of those have picked back up. So that's really encouraging for us. We do sell syrup through the Cabot Creamery retail shops, which has not been something that has come back the same way. There's a great Cabot store up in Waterbury, which still remains closed. We did have a very small store in Portland, Maine, which also closed down. There is a Cabot retail space in Cabot, Vermont, which used to be at the cheese plant, which is now moved into the village of Cabot. I think they're open. I believe they're open. And then the one that we all might know in the Upper Valley is in Queechee, which was a space that was being leased by Cabot and is not being anymore. So that agreement ended, but they've reopened as some kind of a general store. They are still selling Cabot products, and they're still selling our maple syrup, which is awesome. So let's see, as far as the dairy part of the pandemic, I'm not
2 more minutes, Amy. Okay.
Okay. I'm not a dairy market across the United States expert, but what I can say sort of in simple terms is that, as you might imagine, there was a surplus of milk in the beginning of all this, and milk did have to be dumped on the ground, including milk from our co-op, for a period of time. The Richardson family feels very lucky that none of our milk had to be dumped, and that has a lot to do with the fact that the milk that we produce from Jersey cows, or that our cows produce, is particularly high in the components that are ideal for making cheese. So that's both protein and butter fat, especially the protein. And so because our signature product is cheese through Cabot, our milk was always sought after to be used for making our products continually. We were able to, as far as a co-op, we were able to shift gears fairly well. Becka sort of mentioned the idea that, yes, we make these massive food service size blocks of cheese, and literally had to switch gears and make more sort of grocery store and homeowner sized blocks of cheese. But the truth is, like, I think it really speaks to having a well-known name and story and brand recognition in the area, in terms of we've still seen a strong demand for our Cabot products. We were able to introduce some new products this year. And so we all just had our annual meetings over the last week or so. So we're encouraged by the fact that not only did our co-op not lose as many member farms as our board of directors and CEO might have imagined we would have during the pandemic, but we've also retained a strong demand for our products. So I think that's good for now. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Amy.
Thanks.
And I know we're all feeling really sorry for your loss of your father.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for sharing that and for sharing those details about your year. Um, and I'll put in, Amy had shared an article with me, a link to an article about Cabot overall that I'll put in the chat after I introduce our next farm panelist, who's Jenny Sprague from Edgewater Farm in Plainfield, New Hampshire. And Edgewater, I believe, this is, now I found the Richardson year on the website. It was 2 years off. I think Edgewater sold its first strawberries in 1976.
I think you're right.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Jenny.
Yeah. Okay. So, first of all, Becca, if I get off track, let me know. I could go down tangents.
How do you want me to like give you a hand signal when you have like a minute left?
Oh, sure. Oh, that's good.
Okay, great.
Okay. So I'm a part of Edgewater Farm. I'm a farmer there. Edgewater, for those who don't know, it's sorry, I'm a little nervous, guys, but okay. So Edgewater has lots of different components to it. We've got farm stand, we've got greenhouses, we've got CSA, we do wholesale accounts, we do all sorts of different avenues that we move our produce and move plants through. So it's a lot, it's almost like a bunch of different businesses kind of in one, under one umbrella. With that said, there's so many different people who are a part of it. And okay, I'm very nervous, guys. Okay.
Zoom makes me way more nervous too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just take some breaths. We're all here just to love you.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm not going to talk about the farm as a whole. I'm just going to try and focus on my personal experience with COVID and the farm and how it all kind of went for me, because I can't, because there are so many people that work for us and there are so many different heads that I don't want to speak for everybody. I feel like that would be unfair. So in March, everything started happening and I didn't feel like there was any real leadership as far as what to do and how to go about it. How to deal with it. And so we just kind of got together and we're like, well, how are we going to move through the season? And it kind of just started off with let's develop various protocols, but nobody really understood at that point how exactly it passed. And we are in the public a lot, with our greenhouses that open up in the springtime. It starts, so COVID happened in March, and then our opening date is usually Earth Day. I believe April 20th. And we ended up pushing that back because we were just not ready to have people come through the greenhouses. And we were not really sure how people were going to respond. So with that, we started with just like signage everywhere. And I sent you a bunch of photos of that. We just needed to communicate and be super clear to all of our customers and people that wanted to continue to support us. And we just figured signs everywhere. And let's just go to greenhouses. So we started with greenhouses and everything changed. The greenhouses remain the same. The plants remain the same. The people that worked there remain the same, but structures were different. Like we set up different pay hut. Like typically you go into this one place to pay. We set up different spools and try to kind of separate people for checkout. And as far as greenhouses, we put a max on. Some greenhouses were only allowed 2 people at a time. Some greenhouses were 4 to 6 people at a time. For the most part, people were very respectful, and we felt a lot of, oh yeah, somebody commented the curbside pickup. Yep. So we also developed a website. Like we were like, let's just do all the things and figure out how to make it all work. So we just kind of like an Edgewater fashion where we're just like, let's do everything. And so we kind of did everything with how to relate to COVID. And because we just wanted people to be comfortable coming into our space. The thing about greenhouse season, especially, is after a full winter here, which is very tough enough as it is. And it's just a place that we want people to come and just explore and just have their mind blown with plants. And we want people to meander, but this year was different. And we needed to figure out how to let people meander. So we did set up a website through BigCommerce that just felt like crazy to us. We tried it out, and that was very challenging. It was really challenging to do the website and the greenhouse space at the same time. During that time of year, it's such a rush. It's like, you know, we're up super early, and then we get clock out at a certain time, but then we're still up at nighttime, just getting the website ready for the next day. So it just felt like it was just like moving through the season. It felt like strawberry season. Strawberry season for me is my busiest time of year. And it felt like that. And I was just thinking, I was like, oh man, we're going to go to strawberry season and I'm going to be cooked. And we did, and it was fine. I mean, I feel like I'm still like recovering from the season because it was just so constant movement. So, okay, so I don't want to get too off track, but so yeah, so that was greenhouse season, and then 2 more minutes. Okay, and then CSA. So I'll just go into CSA because that's where I spend a lot of my time at the farm, in the fields, connecting with our CSA members and so on and so forth. Just so y'all have a picture of how it went. In past years, our CSA number is between 100 and like 150 members, and this year it was like 275. So it was through the roof. We got so much support from everybody, and I feel like I should wrap this up. Farm stand was nuts. We were slammed all season. It was great. It was emotionally so stressful and trying to figure out how to protect or how to make it feel safe for everybody involved. That was the stressful part, but we're so lucky that we got to just be outside as much as possible. And once greenhouse season was over, I personally am away from the public, so that felt good for me. But the people who were at the farm stand, they did a great job. And what I hear from the farm stand is that people were so respectful and just appreciative of the fact that we were open. So is that it?
That sounds great to start. Yeah. Thank you so much, Jenny.
Yep.
That's awesome. And just to reiterate, I somehow always feel much more nervous on Zoom than I do with normal nerves in person. I don't know why. So our next panelist is going to be Lisa Davis from Sweet Dough Dairy in Chelsea, Vermont, which she started in 2012. Hi, Lisa. Do you want me to give you, oh, you're muted.
Thanks, Becca.
I'll give you like a little hand wiggle when we should start wrapping up.
Sure. So I'll try to go through things fairly quickly because I'd love to leave time for questions from people at the end. But for those who aren't familiar with us, my husband and I started Sweet Dough Dairy, which is our 81-acre farmstead here in the hills of central Vermont in Chelsea. And we raise dairy goats, but unlike some of the other farmers here, we don't sell milk. We actually use 100% of the milk that we produce on our farm in gelato production, which we also do here on our farm in our on-farm creamery. So it's I think we might be the only farmer producer here on the panel, if I'm not mistaken, but Becca is sort of right that we started our farm journey in 2012, but we really just finished our third season in production, and it's just been a crazy journey. When we bought our property in 2012, we really didn't know yet that we wanted to specialize in dairy goats. But we kind of came to that conclusion, and then it was a 4.5-year process that we undertook to actually build the infrastructure we needed to start our dairy. We did all of the construction, everything from the plumbing, the electrical, the actual like physical raising of our construction of our building and our creamery, our milk parlor, all ourselves with the help of a very generous neighbor in our town who worked alongside us and taught us the construction skills we needed to actually make our dream a reality. So we are tiny. It is just my husband who is full-time on the farm. I do as much as I can on the farm, but I also have a full-time off-farm job, which was critical when you are a first-generation farmer like my husband and I are. You need that to make it all work, especially in dairying. And we now have a herd of about 100 and I'd say about 130 dairy goats. We milked 40 this year, and our herd expands and contracts. So at any given time during the year, we're raising somewhere between 100 and 250 goats. And I say that because dairy goats have twins and triplets as the norm. So if we're milking around 40 does, that means a 2.5 kid per doe average every spring is born. And then we're retaining many of those who eventually join our milk production line over the next year or 2 years. So that's a little bit about our farm. In terms of the impact of the pandemic, the timing was really like, it was really the worst part of it for us because for a lot of different reasons. One is that kidding season for us starts in mid-March, and we birth about 125 to 150 kids on our farm in a span of 8 weeks from mid-March to mid-May. So that is a lot of it's a lot of animal care to happen at the same time that gelato season is ramping up. So we are balancing feeding milk back to kids and also starting to utilize milk for building inventory as we go into typically our busiest gelato production and selling season. And on top of it this year, it was March 11th, and I remember this specifically because it's the day before my birthday, that we had a huge cover story in the food section of the Boston Globe, touting how amazing our gelato was. But of course, that was like a week before things started to get crazy pandemic-wise. So we had just, like, coming off that article, landed a brand new distribution agreement for bulk sales to high-end restaurants. And that basically came to a screeching halt once restaurants started to shutter and all of the new state guidelines came into play. So it was a bit of a blow during our busiest time of year, but you know, we had some positive things that came out of the pandemic too, because a lot of consumers started to have concerns about food security. We actually saw livestock sales do really well this year. So believe it or not, when a lot of families had more time on their hands, and many families are interested in raising the kind of dairy goat that we raise, we actually saw an incredible number of inquiries coming into our farm of people wanting to buy livestock at all stages of life. Midlife, you know, height of production, in milk, not in milk, kids. And so we really were able to capitalize on that in the spring season. And this year we actually had some surplus livestock from last year that we had intended to market, and we didn't have to market it very hard. We were actually able to have inventory to meet the demand for livestock. And in terms of gelato, I think the hardest thing for us, and I know that Al Reitz is on the line, I think the most sort of heartbreaking thing for us was really not being able to get out to our retail store partners to sample product, because once people try our gelato, they're pretty much fans for life. But we usually are in our retail store partners, like doling out free samples at least once a month. And because stores put an end to that, we weren't able to sort of do that for them. And that was, I think, one of the most heartbreaking things for me this season, is not being able to be out in stores and in front of customers. But I know I'm running out of time, so
Great. I couldn't tell if you saw me or not. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll stop there and leave the rest to questions, but I'm happy to answer any other questions.
All right, awesome. We're just gonna have, that was great, Lisa. Thank you, and happy belated birthday, and or future birthday. And we're just gonna have our next farmer panelist talk, and then we'll be open to questions, which will be exciting. So our next farmer panelist is Shona Sanford-Long from Flying Dog Farm in South Royalton, Vermont. And Shona's last because although she is a second generation farmer of Luna Blue Farm, she has just started her own business last year on the farm, Flying Dog. Thank you, Shona.
Thanks, Becca. Hi, everyone. So actually, I just started this spring in May is when I registered as a business. So kind of course, in the craziest of times. So just, yeah, to clarify, I know we often get questions of who Flying Dog Farm is, because I am second generation of Luna Blue Farm, and I've been very lucky to be still marketing and selling product kind of with and through my parents, Tim Sanford and Suzanne Long, through our farmers market, Luna Blue stand at the farmers market and CSA and everything. And I haven't really done any marketing this year. I haven't, in part because of the pandemic, I think I haven't really had to do any marketing. As Becca mentioned, that many meat sales have been through the roof for people. That's been my situation as well. So just a little bit more about the farm before I get into pandemic. Sorry, I also really don't like speaking on Zoom, but I'll try to be not too nervous about this. So this is my first year as my own business. I grew up on Luna Blue Farm, and I've been working here for the last 2 years, managing the livestock for my parents. And then this past winter, after quite a bit of back and forth of whether my husband and I were going to stay in the area or move down towards New York City or somewhere else with more restaurants, because that's what he works in. We decided to stay and buy the beef cattle and pigs and sheep from my parents and start my own business based off of that. So I'm certified organic and raise as much on pasture, do as much intensive grazing as I can, all things that I'm trying to work on improving. And I sell mostly my meat through farmers market and CSA, and whole halves and quarters of mostly pork and beef right now. Sheep is still kind of an experimental side of the farm. And I guess as far as pandemic, I'm happy to answer more questions about the farm if people are interested. But I think, as many people have said, it's been really, there's been positive sides and really difficult sides for us. And I'll speak a little bit to my experience with, as well as Flying Dog, because I've been involved in both of them. But I know, like many people, initially it was just trying to figure out what to do, what we were going to be dealing with. Our farmers markets were closed down for a couple weeks in the spring, maybe a month in the spring, which is a huge source of income for us. And so we were trying to figure out what our alternatives are. Were they going to be open again? We ended up investing in an online platforms for sales. And when I say we, that was more Luna Blue ended up investing in that, and I was able to kind of tag along. I think for me, both in starting the farm in general, but especially in the pandemic, being connected to Luna Blue and having the support of them, both financially and, you know, connecting to market, having that connection with the community already established is really what made me able to get through the pandemic and do well in this. And I think if without that support, you know, I might be in a very different place right now. But we did invest in that, and that was very helpful in, you know, getting food to our community and keeping sales going. I think we're able to have a lot more people come to the farm than we often do because of that, which is kind of a bonus that we didn't really expect. Some people from closer to the farm that don't normally come to the farm, we don't normally have a farm stand. And as many people said, we had a pretty dramatic increase in CSA subscriptions. I had a pretty significant increase in inquiries for half animals and quarter animals, and you know, people trying to buy meat in large quantities. And I think for me, a lot of the struggle was trying to figure out who to sell my meat to before it ran out, and how to try to keep up with demand on the production side. I think one of the challenges, especially with raising livestock, is the amount of time it takes to get to a finished product. So it's not an easy, I mean, there's difficulties for any product, but it's not, you know, oh, I'll buy more cattle and they'll be ready in a month or 2 weeks or something like that. And I think also, as a couple, I know Lisa mentioned people being interested in buying animals for their home use. I think one of the biggest challenges was running into sourcing animals. And I know a lot of other livestock farmers had issues if they were trying to increase numbers, like we buy in feeder pigs at times. And when I realized that, oh, I should be getting some more animals in to meet this demand, I couldn't find any more pigs to buy in, especially being certified organic. I already have a limited supply. So I know there were other people who had animals lined up they were trying to buy, and other, you know, farmers backed out on them because they realized they were going to be able to sell more. I know a lot of people had issues with slaughterhouses. I was very lucky that I didn't lose any slaughter spots, and I had everything that I needed. That's something that I think might become more of an issue this year going forward, because I know many slaughterhouses are still booked. They're already booked through next year. And so I think it's one of those things in trying to plan. I think for me this year, the pandemic was almost beneficial in many ways in bringing more interest to our products and increasing demand and helping with cash flow, especially as a young business. But I think it's hard to know for me how that demand will continue, if we'll continue to have the same demand, and if I'll be able to meet it by, you know, buying in more animals or getting more slaughter spots or not. I think the challenge for me right now is trying to figure out what the future holds and what the best options are moving forward.
Shona, if you like, we could just wrap up there and start taking general questions. Is there any? Thank you. Thank you so much. You did great. It is weird. It's like talking to, you can't see the people you're talking to. So it's just, that's what I've identified as the weird thing about the Zoom. So thank you all so much for sharing your experiences and your thoughts. And we're going to start our question and answer and discussion part of our time together. So I'm just going to explain how this is going to work for everyone. So you can either ask your questions in the chat, as people have already begun to do, which is lovely. I'm really into these questions everyone's got going on here. And then another thing you can do, if you want to ask your question out loud, what you can do is, I don't think I have a raised hand. I think because I'm a host, I don't have a raised hand. But I think, does everyone else have a raised hand on the bottom of their screen? All I have like celebrate and thumbs up. Oh, Sherry Lacey raised her hand. Thank you, Sherry. Okay, so Sherry demonstrated that that this is possible. So you can raise your hand, and then Nancy's going to help me sort of navigate the chat and the hand raising. And so while everyone's kind of gathering themselves to ask questions and raise hands, I'm just going to dive in with a question that was submitted ahead of time, which is, do you know of farmers who, due to COVID, are struggling to stay in business? And this person didn't want you to name any names. They just wanted to know, do you know farmers who are and why they are? Sort of, if you know, if you do know why. Let's see. Oh, Jenny, Nancy, what should I show to be able to see everybody here? Sorry, technical issue.
You want me just to spotlight everybody?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yep.
Okay.
Alan says you go to participate. Oh, look, everyone knows how to raise their hand but me. This is awesome.
I don't know.
Yeah, as the host, I cannot raise my hand. You learn something new about Zoom every day. Okay, awesome. All right, so Jenny, I saw that you had an idea about farms that you knew who might be struggling to stay open.
Well, a friend of mine who's a grower down in the Hudson Valley just decided to shut down her flower farm for the summer. She primarily does weddings, and she does have wholesale accounts, but she just kind of like saw the writing on the wall and was just like, this is not going to be a lucrative summer for me. I also don't know if, I don't know what a wedding's going to look like. You know, as it turns out, I think she ended up doing 2 weddings, but then just buying in flowers from somewhere else. So, but I'm not sure what she did with the land. I know that she's a really thoughtful grower, so potentially she turned that land into cover crop for the summer. But that's one. I mean, that was the first thing that came to mind is flower farmers.
Yeah.
But I can't speak for any other flower farmers.
Anyone else have an example?
I don't know of anyone that's, you know, that's gone out of business, or I don't have specific examples of people that have had a really hard time. I know that people selling to restaurants, I know of other meat producers selling to restaurants that have had to kind of switch gears. I think there's been such a big demand for meat that many of those people have been able to switch gears, but I can't really speak fully to that.
Yeah, Amy.
I can just add, not exactly switching gears, but similarly, in the fluid milk business, our co-op had decided to already at the beginning of the calendar year, so beginning in January, we were to implement a supply management protocol within our co-op. And so being on the smaller end of producers, that wasn't going to affect our farm specifically. But then as things got worse and worse with oversupply of milk across the nation, our board of directors decided to implement a more intense supply management program. So that's something that's still being looked at each month. And that once we got to November and now December, we've been able to go back to the original co-op plan that we had decided to start in January of 2020. But it's a really delicate balance for dairy farmers in terms of being mindful of supply and whether or not you, I guess, have the economies of scale to just deal with supply management and kind of keep doing what you're doing, or to be, a much smaller producer like we are and really try to implement supply management as it's intended. And it's been a difficult issue across our co-op, but I guess it's one good example of being a co-op is that we all have a stake in it. And so we all really try hard to look out for each other.
Mm, mm. Okay. Let's see if I can navigate all these comment questions, which look really great. Oh, so Lisa, maybe you could answer this one within the chat itself, which is, where is the gelato sold? In fact, I think everyone might be able to indicate where your products could be found. If it's
Sure,
not on
there's
your website. We
on our
list it.
website, there's a list of there's a list of retail stores that carry our gelato on our website, but definitely all three of the co-op food stores. Al Reitz, you're on this call, so Hanover, Lebanon, White River Junction, all of them.
Okay, so we got a question from wondering if anyone applied to the Vermont Coronavirus Agricultural Assistant Grant programs, or if there were programs in New Hampshire that folks applied to, and or what other support from the states would be desired. I'm adding I think the question is only about Vermont, but I'm including New Hampshire. Yes, did anyone have luck with the programs? Is more support needed?
Yep, we did the first round of the Vermont Ag Assistance. My mother-in-law, have to give all credit to her. It was hard for her to get through the application, but there was a lot of technical assistance provided, and she did do it, and we did get compensation or support in a fairly short amount of time, actually. I don't know if I can speak to anything else, although we have looked into options as a Maple business too, for any support opportunities there. And I think there might be something.
One of
Anyone else?
the question was about grants. Becka, I'm sorry.
No, about, am I still pretty faint, Nancy?
I can hear you, but speak up a little.
I'm wondering if it's like is this better?
Yes, keep going.
Oh, okay, that's this button on my ear thing. Just gonna be transparent about my tech bumbliness. Okay, so the question was wondering if anyone applied to the Vermont Coronavirus Ag Assistant Grant programs, or if other support from the state would be desired.
The one thing I'll say is we sometimes we do, but apply for assistance, grant assistance. But for us, we are so tiny, and people may not think 100 to 200 head is tiny when it comes to raising livestock, or a dairy our scale is tiny, but it really is. And it's when it's just like two of us that are running our operation, doing all of the sales and marketing, making the gelato, milking twice a day, caring for all of these animals, and working another full-time job. Honestly, sometimes our biggest challenge is not that we wouldn't qualify for support or need it. It's that we don't have the time to write the grant proposals, to actually follow the paperwork and assemble all the documentation that we need. Because the livelihoods of our livestock are sometimes on the line, and you have to make a hard choice. And sometimes there's just not enough time in the day for us to take advantage of those programs, even though they're needed desperately. You have to pick and choose battles, and we do that every single day on our farm. So, it's just a hard thing to wrap your head around. And especially this year, when coronavirus information was coming at us so fast and furiously, both in terms of what the new protocols were as we headed into farmers market season, what the protocols were for us as an employer and keeping our employees safe, and how we needed to interact with our employee. And all of those things sort of converging at once sort of made for an extra set of challenges.
Yeah, we're lucky enough to have an opposite. So we're lucky enough so we have a really good relationship with our county extension agent, South Wilner. And he's always on the lookout for not only our farm, but other farms. McNamara Dairy, Riverview Farm. I know that he's like, oh, there's loans out there, there's grants out there. I'll help you get through the paperwork. And so that's been, for us, we have him as a resource, and then he kind of to filter what we need to do. And then I don't do any of it, but my mother-in-law, Ann Sprague, is just at the desk at like 4 a.m. just trying to get this stuff out there in the world. So we have gotten assistance, but we do have somebody else helping us with all that stuff, because there is so much.
The one thing,
Shona, you want to add?
yeah, the one thing that I did, which is federal, not Vermont specific, is the CFAP2 COVID aid, and that was pretty straightforward with help from the FSA. The agent Courtney, who's works at the White River office, was really helpful and made that a really easy thing to apply for. Most of the other funding, I didn't, as a first year producer, I didn't feel like I was really eligible for it. It didn't quite make sense for me related to the COVID stuff. There's other grants and funding out there that similarly to Lisa, I just didn't have time to figure out this year. But COVID specific, the CFAP2, I think, is pretty well geared to work for small and large farms.
That's great. Sounds like a real mix of experience with that. Like, definitely sounds like having the technical service providers to help, and the mother-in-law also sounds like an important person to get the grants in. So another question was, has anyone participated in the Vermont Everyone Eats program, or Farmers to Family Food Box programs, or anything similar, sort of like emergency food supply? And Suzanne, who is Shona's mother and is one of the farmers of Luna Blue Farm, says that Luna Blue has been working for Upper Valley Everyone Eats. So this is a program where restaurants are being paid by the state of Vermont to make meals for people who are in need of meals. So has anyone else participated in a project like that?
We have. We've been, well, truthfully, I don't know the name of the program. It's kind of like, okay, here's the order that we need to put together for the day. And, but once a week, this massive semi truck comes to our pack shed, to our loading dock, and we put together pallets and pallets of bushel wax boxes full of carrots and cabbage, and in the summertime, like summer squash and cucumber, zucchini, and then we just move so much produce that way to these places. And they've been putting together these boxes, and I am embarrassed I don't know the name of it, because my head's kind of like, okay, what do we need to do? Great, let's fill that up. Versus I don't really know where it's going, but I do know that it is. We have been participating in that, moving produce like that to those places, and they're government funded, which is amazing. So we are actually getting a paycheck. We're not getting a paycheck. We're getting paid by them, by them, and but the government's paying for it.
Yes.
Awesome.
Amy, you were going to add in.
Been some a number of different events where dairy co-ops, not just ours, also DFA, that's Dairy Farmers of America, have donated gallons of milk to either in a public setting where people can show up to a parking lot of a Walmart somewhere, or food bank distribution. So we haven't done anything like that farm-based, but another fun thing that Cabot does always, and with a special effort this year, is and again, not any of us Richardsons here in Hartland, but co-op wide, called Random Acts of Cheddar. So this is where our farmer members can get some of our product. We have these individually wrapped slices of cheese, and we bring them to, so this year the big deal was to bring them to essential workers in other places, healthcare workers and other emergency related folks, and give them free cheese to say thank you for the work that they're doing.
I love that cheese sense of humor. That is really funny. All right, we're getting some really awesome questions. So I think maybe with each question we'll just do a couple of us will answer and then carry on unless there's something burning. So, all right, so we have for anybody who wants to answer, what are the biggest challenges you see on the horizon for winter and spring as the pandemic continues? So just a little question.
One of the biggest challenges for us is if we continue to see like a lack of events. So for two different reasons. One is generally in the spring and primarily in the spring, but sometimes also in the fall, is a big time for like trade shows, which is like some of our biggest selling opportunities, like and opportunities to reach new customers come through those trade shows. Our participation in those trade shows, it's an opportunity for us to sample our product out to new store customers, to new distribution partners, and those have all been canceled. Like all of the spring ones last year were canceled. None of the fall ones took place. And so if that continues, that's really going to impede our growth going forward. And then the second thing is, you know, we also have a gelato cart that we use for farmers markets, and we do larger scale events, things like the Tunbridge Fair or the Nano Brewery Festival that happens at the Tunbridge Fairgrounds every year. And that's a huge source of income for us in the spring, summer, and fall months that has basically, except for farmers markets, disappeared. So, you know, as I look ahead to the next coming season, I'm really hoping we get to the point where the vaccine is distributed widely enough that we see some of those restrictions be able to be eased.
Does anyone else want to add a challenge that they're seeing on the horizon? Lisa, I'm just thinking it's really interesting because you're you self-marketing your product to distributors. You're sort of like acting as a producer and a middle person. So it's unique here in this group in that way. Because you have a processed product. So, but does anyone else want to say anything, any challenges you're seeing on the horizon? Shona, you mentioned the slaughterhouses being filled. We've got another question about that.
Yeah, I can talk about that now or later, whenever is convenient. I think that's the big, for me, slaughter and sourcing livestock are my big concerns.
Yeah.
That I can
want to just address that really briefly right now? Because I do see at least one other question about that.
Yeah, so I think, as I mentioned, I think, a lot of people have been talking about, there's a fair amount of knowledge about slaughterhouses being overbooked. I know here there's some places that are, probably many places that are booked through completely booked through 2020. I know in other parts of this, or 2021, sorry. I know in other parts of the country, there's places that are already booked through 2022. I haven't had any issues losing slaughter spots. I know that's something people have had that as well. Thinking they've had places, slots scheduled and then losing them. And I think for me, I have scheduled dates through 2020, but there's certain animals where that's a little tricky. Pigs, for example, I have pigs that are due to farrow in the spring, but I don't know exactly when they're going to farrow yet. And I don't know how many piglets they're going to have. So it's trying to figure out, well, if I need, slaughter dates for fall pigs, how many dates do I make and when do I make them? And do I need to make them right now to make sure I have dates? And then I just have to hope that the pigs will be ready, or, thanks, Becca, for that translation. Hope that the pigs will be ready or not be, I'm not going to be feeding grain for an extra month or so. So I think that's a thing that I'm thinking about and trying to figure out how best to plan for. I think also thinking about sourcing animals. I'm, working on increasing animal numbers, both to meet demand and just to get to a place where I am at the place I need to be economically. So that means buying in, potentially steers to finish. Normally right now I do have calves that are born on farm, piglets that are born on farm, lambs on farm, but I don't have enough to meet my demand. So trying to figure out, will I be able to source the animals that I need? What will be the demand this spring for animals? Is going to be like last year where, anytime an animal is available, it's gone like that. So I think those are the big things for me, and trying to assess, will the demand be the same? Will people be wanting to buy quarters and halves, or, are they already stocked up? I think from this past year, demand's been pretty consistent, but it's just a little hard to know. And, we have to plan pretty far out.
Yeah. All right, I took off my earbuds, so can you guys hear me? Is this better? All right, looking at Alan. All right, so we're close to 7:45. I'm wondering, do you all feel like you could stay on a little bit longer to talk about more questions? And then is that going to work out?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. And then we'll go up to 8. And then if anyone's attending and has to go, we would, of course, understand. So we'll just move into a few more these excellent questions here. Let me see if I can go back up to where I was.
Becka, there are a couple good ones.
Yeah, you
What
want
if-
to dive in with one that you're enjoying looking at?
Yeah, there are a couple. What, if any, lasting effects do you see that might change the way you run your business? So I know everyone's pivoted really quickly in this year, but has there been something that you foresee it being a permanent post-pandemic
Great
adjustment?
question. Yeah, great question. I personally am hoping I'm not going to spend the rest of my career in my basement.
For sure. So maybe Shona, I'm assuming maybe the online store for Luna Blue will continue post-pandemic, or is that?
Yeah,
do you think
I
so?
think that's something, it's definitely, I think we'll have to figure it out a little bit, assess it. I think for me, the online store has been really great, and online orders make things easier in some ways, because it's, I have to pack meat in coolers anyway, and it's, having pre-orders makes the handling a little easier, and I know exactly what to bring to farmers market or, wherever pickup or people are coming to the farm. And the platform that we're using, unlike many platforms, is set up well for the variable weights of selling meat. For vegetables, I think it's been really good this year. Speaking to the Luna Blue side of things a little bit, I think it's been really great for us this year. It's allowed us to, continue feeding our community and getting, keeping sales going, even when we had the farmers market in person. Online sales give us another outlet and made it easier for people who didn't feel comfortable, coming up to the farm stand to just come grab their bag and go. But it is a lot more complicated to be packing orders for the vegetables and trying to assess, exactly how many bags of mescaline are we going to get. And, we don't want to oversell, but we also don't want to undersell. And so I think for vegetables, it's a little bit more complicated. So it's harder to know if it makes sense to continue that post-pandemic. I think for meat, it probably will make sense, and it's kind of a nice way to be able to have a farm store type option for us, where we're a little off the beaten track. A regular farm store doesn't make quite as much sense for us, but it's really nice to have an option.
Shona, you're frozen, so I'm just going to see if anyone else is thinking of anything that is a lasting impact on how you might do your business in a positive way, that you might choose to add. Keep on, yeah, Amy.
I was just going to say that I think that the online sales is actually really interesting. I've been watching on the Hartland listserv how our farmers market is working that way. And it crossed my mind at one point that Cabot is like totally missing that boat. I don't really know how our co-op would get in on that, but it does seem to be a model that people, the customers have taken to. So not that it's something that's there that we are going to incorporate into our business as a dairy farm, but at the same time, we have our own website and do sell some of our farm product through our own website. And I guess it's all just given me some more interesting things to think about and want to investigate in terms of either being able to sell Cabot products either through our own farm-based website or through our local farmers market. And then, the big dream is like, what value-added product could we develop as our own and then sell that way also.
Interesting.
I mean, one thing that has been really great to see from my perspective that I hope will stay is more partnerships among farms. So for us, we had very little sort of representation at other farm stands that exist in our area. But as we saw different farm stands want to diversify their offerings to supplement their own income that they were generating from their products, we saw more outreach from them to us to say, can you sell to our farm stand? Can we offer your product at our farm stand, knowing that we don't have one? So it was an added sales channel for us that we hadn't really fully explored before. And by having our product and offering it through their stand, they were able to earn some supplemental income through that offering. So it was a really great mutually beneficial relationship that we hadn't yet fully explored. And I think there's a whole lot more potential there for those who are open to it.
Great. Okay, those are great. That's great information. Here's a great question. Besides the obvious, which is buying products, what can the community do to help your farms?
Keep the momentum, right? Just keep the momentum up. One thing that Shona said something about not knowing what this season will look like. And, right now we're entering into the, right now I'm spending my days looking at what seeds were to order for the year. And that in itself is a huge undertaking in the amount of money that we put forth in buying in seeds for the fields I think people will be really surprised to know how much we spend on that. And we're planning and doing all these things, and we're kind of thinking in our head that this coming year is going to be like that, like it was last year, but we don't actually know. And so, all we can do is just hope that the momentum remains to get your stuff from people that from your farm, your whatever farm is your farm. I feel like in this area everybody has their farm. So for people who are tied to Edgewater, please continue to show up, and for new people, please continue to show up. But also, go to Luna Blue, go to other farms in the area, and put your support there. I don't know, but I don't know if it's just like a hot trend that came out of the pandemic, or if I don't know. So.
Yeah, I had a question. I don't want to derail us from all answering this question that was so great about what can the community do to help farms. But that was a question I had too about, I think that's maybe related to what you're saying, and it is about, I feel like we often, when talking about local food, there's an idea that if only more people understood the food system or understood how local food is produced, and the difference between, basically a personally raised product, created product, and industrial agriculture, and what it means to have local farms for our communities in times of crisis. And now that's happened. And is it going to stick? Are those people going to stick around? And who knows the answer, but Amy does. Okay, good.
No, I don't know the answer. I was just going to say that the question first made me think of something that I see on social media a lot, which is when consumers have questions about agriculture, please ask farmers, not Google, for the stories and the information and the facts. And So that's one piece of this puzzle. And another piece, Becka, is that we are maybe not industrial agriculture, but all of us here on the panel are operating businesses, and you know, we want to pay our bills, and we want to be able to buy the seeds we need. And you know, I've been milking in the same milking parlor for 26 years, and it's good that I'm short and I don't mind bending down that far. But you know, these are the things that happen to us because we're trying to make a living at doing this. And so I think that part of what we need from our consumers and our neighbors and our communities is the willingness on their side, and I don't know who that is, I'm just saying they right now, to pay for the value of what we're producing, whether it's organic or conventional. No, I'm not an organic farmer, but we graze cows and we have a simple system. And, you know, I think we all play a role in the local food system, and there's so much value to it. I mean, just imagine what the Upper Valley would look like if it didn't have these farms that we're representing.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly for, you know, of course, like, you know, buying local matters, of course, but, you know, for us, sometimes it's the intangible, the less tangible things, and maybe what may seem to some as the less important things that actually keep us going. Like I remember like distinctly when the pandemic hit that we had received like a slew of like handwritten thank you notes or cards from random customers, like as far south as New York City and as far north as Maine, who randomly discovered our gelato and just like felt compelled to write us a note about how much joy it was bringing them in a really trying time, or that like they never imagined a goat milk gelato could taste so amazing. And like just getting a note like that in the mail on the days that are the hardest, like do so much to lift our spirits and sort of keep us going through like the hardest times. And there are hard times in farming, and especially in livestock farming. You're dealing with lots of loss, you're fighting, you know, tooth and nail to save animals all the time, to keep your herds healthy. And it's not always a walk in the woods. Like we all have, I'm sure, like beautiful social media accounts. We post really fun pictures of babies, but nobody sees or wants to see the really hard days. And so just sometimes something as simple as a thank you note gets you through.
Oh, it's very moving. Alan, you took down your hand, but did you want to ask a question?
I'm no longer on mute. I took it off myself without prompting. No, I was going to echo some things, but I will just echo the point about how do we keep this momentum? You've got to keep the conversation current. It's like the old saying, you don't improve your diet with a plan to stop. And the only suggestion I might have, and this is not to give you all more work because you are amazing in terms of what you do, is that these little stories, snippets through your social media feeds or through your blog posts that continue to focus a window, just a snapshot on what it takes to do your work. The beautiful pictures are great. A moment in the life of farming tells the story. And then you ask the question, or the question was asked, what can consumers do besides just buying the product? I would add, and this is a suggestion to them, that not enough are on this call, but to tell their friends about the foods and the local stories that they are enjoying. You know, please share this post on your Facebook page is an important prompt, because people like to support or send cards to the people that provide wonderful food to them. So that's just an exclamation point. Thank you all. This has been remarkable.
Thank you, Alan. I should let everyone who doesn't know that Alan is the, I'm going to say the wrong word for your current title, but the communications czar at the Hanover Food Co-op. I don't think that's your current title right now, Alan, but I wanted to just explain that is Alan's area of deep knowledge. Well, I'm going to start to wrap us up. Okay, Nancy's reminded me that I created a poll just for fun to see if anyone who's on the call wants to weigh in about events we can have over the rest of this coming winter and into the early spring. Nancy, will you launch the poll? I don't even know what it looks like from a host standpoint.
It's not letting me. Can you do it?
Nope. Okay. Enough about the poll. Experiments with Zoom. Okay. So do any of you all have like last things you want to say before I wrap us up? Any burning thoughts?
I just want to say thank you to everybody who actually joined this call. I was actually amazed at how many people registered to be on this call. And I'm not sure a year ago we would have seen this level of participation and support for our local farms in the Upper Valley. So it's really heartwarming to me to see that. And you know, to those of you who were kind enough to give us kudos on our gelato in the group chat function. Thank you so much. It means a ton to us, and it really does keep us motivated to keep feeding you.
Thanks, Lisa. Amy, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I definitely would echo what Lisa says as far as thanks for coming to the event tonight. I had no idea it would be quite so popular either. And just thinking about what Alan was saying, I think that us farmers are, you know, we're the best advocates for ourselves, and there's something that's really real about us showing beautiful photos and videos on our social media. I love what Jenny does. Do you do it for Edgewater Farm? Yeah. So, you know, we follow each other on Instagram, and I think the truth is that the beautiful things that we're showing every day or most days are real. I mean, that's the lives that we're living on our farms, are in the midst of beautiful nature and beautiful animals. And that's what we share. And oh, and beautiful vegetables, I'm sorry. And it's totally real. And once in a while, it's good to share the sad and the hard and the crappy times, and that's real too. I think the consumers, they eat it all up. They really appreciate what we have to show as our real lives.
Thank you, Amy.
Yeah, and also just
Words, yeah.
oh, wait, am I on?
You are. Yeah.
Just the opportunity to just come here tonight, and you know, like all of these people that not just the people who are signed on to the call, but Amy and Lisa and Shona, and I don't even know you guys in real life. You know, like my head is so much at Edgewater Farm. I barely get off River Road or our spot in Cornish to even go to other farms, which is unfortunate, but that's just the truth of it. In the summertime, that's what I do all the time. So it's nice to be able to connect this time of year, even though it's over Zoom. It's just nice to be able to say, hey guys, it's good, nice to meet you.
Yeah, same.
I agree, and I'm also really appreciate everyone on all sides that have joined this call. And I think many people have also said this, but I think just that connection between farmers and between, you know, food buyers and consumers and farmers is really important. And I think I really love sharing about my farm and answering questions about my farm. And I think, as Amy said, kind of, you know, if you have questions about a farm or the way something's raised or the food, or, you know, any questions, I think we're all always happy to answer them and love to speak about our farms. We might not always have a lot of time to do so. We might take a little while to respond to an email or something, but I think, you know, it's really wonderful to get that feedback and to share that community and the life and everything with as many people as possible. So definitely.
Well, Yay! Well, thank you all so much for sharing your time and your experience. And I mean, no one likes, as one of you said to me, no one likes public speaking, and it's also, being on Zoom is nerve-wracking. So I just extra appreciate your willingness to help us understand your experiences and by extension our own experience as being part of the food system. And I'm just going to put all your websites in the chat again. Let's see, so that everyone can figure out where to buy your delicious products and your gorgeous fencing. And thank you to everyone for supporting our panelists tonight. And I was thinking of what I was going to say to wrap up, and I was thinking, oh well, we're all living in a crisis together, and I'm hopeful that we can use this moment, this year, and hopefully not too many more months, to seize on this shared experience of crisis to further build resilience in our communities. And I believe that food production and these farmers and their peers are a big part of that, creating a food system that supports our farms and supports our eaters. And I really am looking forward to more opportunities to be together and to put our shoulders to the plow together. So I'll put up the slides of all the photos that Lisa and Shona and Jenny and Amy shared with me. And so folks can take their time to watch those as they leave the call, and we'll be in touch about future events. And again, thank you all so much.
Thanks all.
Thanks, Nancy. Thanks, Becca.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks, Jenny. I'm trying to remove you from, there we go.
I'm trying to get the slideshow up.
Slideshow, no?
All right, is that working?
There we go.
There we go.
Perfect.
Hey, there's our herd.
Yay. Oh, good. We can have narrated. A narrated slideshow.
Yeah.
How big are they, Lisa?
The does max out around 65 pounds. The bucks will get a little bigger, maybe 75 pounds. But they're pretty short. They're about 19 inches at the withers, which is the shoulder.
Oh, so they're the Nigerian dwarf goats. You probably
Yeah.
said that, but I might have been focusing on facilitating. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, we raise Nigerians exclusively. They're actually the smallest of the dairy goat breeds. That's one of our pastures.
for some reason it's not playing, but I'm just going to carry on. Oh, this is one of Jenny's amazing. Jenny, do you do this every week for the CSA?
I do. I love doing it. It's a chance for me to step away and say, oh, I had to go do something really important, guys. And then I just have a glamour shot photo shoot in the back of the pack shed.
Oh, so gorgeous. I don't know why it's not. Okay, play. Will you play yourself? Let's see.
You can just forward them, Becca.
Yeah, no, they're just going. But I want to be. Are we the only ones left, you guys? Oh, look, this is a pig.
This is our dog, who I'm amazed hasn't jumped up.
That's one of my mamas from this year.
So you did farrow some piglets?
Yeah, I farrowed some in the spring. I just farrowed some a few weeks ago on a lovely 20-degree night, which was fun.
Oh my gosh.
But almost all survived, so that was good. They're in a greenhouse with heat lamps, so comfortable now, but it's always hard when they're, being born and it's freezing outside and you're setting up heat lamps at 3 a.m. and,
I don't know anything of it.
Relate.
Really cute video on Facebook of them though, Shona.
Thank you. No, they're doing great now. They're very fun.
Boy, that space is amazing, Jenny.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's like a year. Have you been there?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, it's like a year too old now, and it's.
Oh, is that big? I was trying to see how many folks are still here with us, and is that a big shed over in the Cornish area?
No, that's
no.
a farm in Plainfield, and it's just changed our lives so much for the better. Just so much space to move and oh my gosh, I don't know how we'd be able to do COVID in our original pack shed setup. There's no room. There was no room. Yeah.
Oh my God, this kid is adorbs, Jenny.
So here's the thing with all the kid photos, which I'm so shocked I went this entire time without mentioning either of them, but they are with us all every second. Like these two are as much a part of our field crew as everybody else. Like it's nuts. Like I can't separate farming and parenting at all right now.
They have gotten so big. It's crazy.
Jenny, I wanted to ask you a question just about that shot a few shots back, the crew without being masked.
Yep.
Is that an older photo, or is that because they all live together and so they're kind of in a pod?
Yeah, so that was the really challenging thing, like emotionally, of the season, is that we couldn't figure out how to be with each other without just being with each other. And so we tight potted up with the people on field crew. Our field crew that comes over from Jamaica. So it was like those guys, and then our family and a couple other people. We were just like, we couldn't figure out. I mean, again, we were so lucky that we were mostly outside.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then as the fall, as fall kicked in and things started to look a little like things were getting more serious, we started wearing masks in the pack shed, specifically with each other. But there are signs everywhere. There's like, if you're not from here, you're putting a mask on, you know, like if you come into the pack shed, do not come. First of all, don't come in, you know, like let us know you're here. We'll meet you outside. So we were very tight with that, but we were with each other as family.
It seems like such a lucky thing. I've been thinking of, I was saying to Shona the other day, like just to be outside with animals and to be with other people is like a little bit of an upside of what it can be also very risky profession, because you have to be with others. But, you know, Nancy and I used to be in each other's pockets when we were at work, and we don't get to see each other anymore. So, you know, that missing that human connection is hard.
Yeah.
So it seems like it's a super benefit of sort of being able to be outside with people you're working with.
I think Amy might have left, but she mentioned when we talked that, you know, COVID hasn't really impacted her work life. Like she worked outside with animals before, and she still works outside with animals. And, you know, the sales side is something different, but her day to day has not changed. And she was just really appreciative of that. I think she left, right?
Yeah, she's not here.
It's true for us too. Like things on the farm feel very normal.
Mm.
But Lisa, were you the only one of this group who continued with farmers markets? Because I know you were at Lebanon every single week.
I was.
Did that get any easier, or how was that?
It was a really challenging farmers market season for us. Primarily because like we always like want people to taste our product, and there was no allowing of that. And also at the farmers markets where we vend, like especially Chelsea and Lebanon, like they're typically a place where people come and stay and eat and enjoy, like, you know, prepared foods for dinner and then a cup of gelato for dessert. And so like it was just a totally different vibe, and it was like all, you know, taking things to go. And so it was more pint sales and less scoop sales, and you didn't have the music that was like bringing people together and keeping people at the market. So it was just a tough season. And we actually vended also in Waitsfield this year, and it was like our first. We had vended just a couple of dates last season in Waitsfield to test the waters there. And this was our first full season in Waitsfield, and we're far less known over in that neck of the woods. So for us to have our first full season at a farmer's market like Waitsfield and not be able to dole out a free taste of our gelato to customers really, like, you know, impeded our like penetration in that market for the season. So I hope it will rebound when we can get back to normal. And it's not that sales weren't worth the trip for us, but I know, like, just compared to the couple of dates we did last year, that our sales there were nothing like they should have been.
Gotcha.
Shona also was vending at markets this year.
Yeah, we do the Norwich Farmers Market. So both Flying Dog Farm and Little Blue Farm together were at the market all summer once it opened up in May. And I think similarly to what Lisa said, it was still a good market, but a very different experience. You know, it's just with vegetables, it required a lot more labor in picking everything out for people, you know, being basically personal shoppers. So where normally we might be fine with 1 or 2 people for most of the summer, except for a few markets that are typically really busy, you know, we needed at least 3 people every market to be going through and picking things out for people. And even that way, you know, we were slammed all market. You know, it's like a line all market, just trying to keep up with people, trying to make sure people aren't, you know, standing out in the sun on those really hot days for too long. And so it was just a challenge, and it just made the market a lot more stressful and less enjoyable than usual. I think, you know, usually it's kind of an enjoyable social event, you know, chance to get to see your customers and hear their appreciation for their food and catch up. And I think it lost a lot of that.
One of the biggest challenges for me, farmers market wise too, is that, you know, I'm like a person who loves to engage with customers and to share our farm story. And we have a lot of customers who want to know about our farm, and just having a mask is like such a barrier to communication. Even though you can still hear each other, it's not the same as, like, you know, being able to fully engage in a conversation with a customer. So I found that really challenging too.
Yeah, I think one of the questions, and I feel like we're wrapping up, but like one of the questions that was asked was,
Yeah, this is voluntary chill out time.
Yeah.
This was just the enticing slide, and we seem to be chatting, but everyone can leave whenever they would like. Hi, Suzanne.
I was thinking, I was like, one of the questions was like, what would you take with you? Like, what would you keep from this whole thing? Nothing. Like, I just want to stop, you know, like, I don't want to have all this like the signage. I want to like paint it all black and then start over. And I don't want to take down the plexiglass, and I don't want to hide in the fields I mean, I do enjoy like hiding in the fields in the backshed, but I also like, I don't want to like keep my kids in the car while I deliver CSA shares, you know, like I want all of things to just, it's tiring. I'm done. But yeah, I would say I would take nothing from it. I'm so positive.
It was a long season. And you're planning for the next one.
I gotta say though, it's like, I don't know, sometimes I think like farmers were like made for this moment though, because like I find that like you need resilience every single day. At least we do. I don't know, maybe our farm is not the norm, but like there is not a day when there is not a total like crisis that needs dealing with. Like whether it's like a broken piece of farm equipment that you need like running in that moment, or it's an animal that gets injured or falls ill, or it's, you know, an unexpected order that comes in that you hadn't accounted for in your production schedule that week and you're short staffed. Or I just feel like it's like, you know, every single day we're putting out fires and sort of like having to overcome yet another obstacle that has become so normal that it was like the pandemic was almost like, oh, okay, here's another one of those normal everyday obstacles that come with dairying. You know, I don't know, it just, in some ways it just felt like it was one more in a long list of obstacles that are just part and parcel to what we do every single day.
Makes a lot of sense to me.
I mean, I don't know, like, I don't want to sound like crazy, but it's kind of true. Like, I feel like there really isn't a day on a farm where we're not like overcoming something.
That's very true with livestock for sure. Honestly, it's so much more true with livestock.
Yeah.
And you have a full-time job.
Yeah. In
Yeah.
spare time, whatever, you know.
You guys are awesome. Thank you.
You really are. It's great.
Oh, so much.
At least we can laugh about it. I mean, sometimes, I don't know, sometimes you really do, like, you just say, like, why do I do this? My life would be so much easier, like, not doing this. But then, I don't know, like, something just keeps calling you back and you just get up and do it again the next day. And then you get one of those nice thank you notes in the mail and you're like, oh, how can we stop now? So many people love our gelato. You know, you just go through this whole cycle of emotions all the time.
Yep. Maybe we should have included wine with this event.
My husband,
Yeah,
my
it's
husband's
chapstick.
sitting here next to me. He's probably like rolling his eyes at what I'm saying.
Yes, he probably is. Oh,
Well, thanks you guys so much. It's been I've really enjoyed this so much, and I appreciate all of you. for
yes.
making time.
Thank you all. You know, I will say one thing, and this is from the bottom of a lot of people's hearts. You know, people say, you know, oh, the Hanover Co-op's great, and yada, yada, yada. We hang our hat on local food. Without local agriculture, we're still a great grocery store, but we ain't nothing like we can be because of what you are all doing every single day. And that's just the truth. It would be a very different cooperative if we didn't have what you are all doing. So on behalf of many people, thank you, thank you, thank you. And our customers know that. They say it. So thanks a lot.
Yep.
All right, you guys. Good luck for the rest of December. May we all
Yes.
stay safe. May all the slaughter dates open up. May everyone birth well.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Uh,
Good night.
Good
Bye.
night.
Good night.
Night. Night, Suzanne.